In 1972, Honda set out to produce motorcycles King of Kings, aiming to develop the fastest and largest touring machine. The AOK prototype was a six-cylinder 1470cc monster, which never saw the light of day, although it did come into its own years later when the 1500 was developed. In October 1974, Honda launched the GL 1000 at the Cologne Motorcycle Show. They dubbed it the ultimate motorcycle, but the machine received mixed reviews from the press. It was to be the first of 40 goldwing models to date. The first wing into the UK was a K1, costing £1,600 and introduced in the autumn of 1975. The K2 arrived in this country in '77. Although mechanically similar to its predecessor, the dressing of the bike was quite different. The same year, Honda UK and Rickman created the GL 1000 Executive, but only 52 were produced. The KZ, imported in 1979, had larger wheel spokes, altered front disc brakes, and the US version had the rear light that would feature on the 1100. From this year on, all American models would have the production year stamped onto the frame number plate. In late 1979, a new goldwing was introduced, the GL 1100 KA. It introduced electronic ignition, a completely new frame to incorporate the larger engine, new shaft drive, carburetors, air suspension front and rear, new wheels and customised styling. The 1100C and DC appeared in '82 with gear ratios changed to give low revs at high speed, new disc brakes, twin piston calipers, self-cancelling turn signals and a 10 amp accessory terminal. The GL 1200 was a totally new bike. New frame, new engine, new luggage, new seat, new everything. 3 models were introduced into the American market, the Standard, the Interstate and the Aspencade. In Britain we had the Deluxe and the Aspencade. The Standard 1200 was dropped in '85 and 5,372 limited editions were made for the US market. The first fuel-injected wing with trip computer, auto-level suspension and exhaust extensions was launched to commemorate the 10th year of the Gold Wing. The worldwide launch of the 1500 was in 1988. It had been developed alongside the 1200 and the original prototype of the AOK was resurrected. The 6-cylinder machine with reverse gear, central locking, electronic cruise control is the longest running Goldwing production model to date. But what can they do next? A 2-litre bike perhaps? Or maybe a return to a more traditional motorcycle? So what is it that makes an individual choose a particular model?
I've owned this 1000 since 1980. When I bought it, it had 21,000 miles on the clock. I did 20,000 miles in the first 12 months, then I had an major engine rebuild. Since that engine rebuild, I've done 135,000 miles. It was 3 years old when I bought it, and I've just had it ever since, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a wonderful bike. If I had the money, I would buy a 1500 because equally they were as nice, but I'd never part with my 1000, not in a million years.
Okay, this is a Goldwing 1100. I bought it back in 1987. It was then a plain Jane. At that time, there was only 1200s and 1100s available on the market, and this was the only one I could afford. Since then, I've dressed it, as you can see, up to interstate standard, and last year it was involved in a 50-mile-an-hour crash and was written off against a Skoda, actually, with a lady driver. First of all, I had to rebuild myself, and over the winter period, I rebuilt this up to the standard you can see now. I like the 1100. It's more of a bike than some of the 1500s, but given the choice, I suppose if I had the money, I'd like to keep the 1100 for touring and also have a 1500.
This is the third goldwing which I've owned. This is a GL 1200 Bear, very rare indeed. It's one of only, I think, 9 in the country at the last count. I've had a 1500 goldwing, and I've also had a 1200 Aspencade in the last few years, as well as, in fact, a Harley Davidson. And this is my, someone's freaking out behind the camera here, but this is my pride and joy. This is a very, very nice bike indeed, extremely rare, and I love it.
Yeah, this is a 1985 model, imported from America. It's a limited edition 1200, and I've owned it for 2 years now. I've had bikes since 1983. I started with a 1000cc, which was a KZ model, and then gradually put the parts on it, the fairing and the panniers, to make it more luxurious and more comfortable to travel around with. And then I bought an 1100 Aspencade, which I thought was the bike, until I had a ride on a 1200 Aspencade and changed it for a slightly newer model. I then bought another 1000cc bike which didn't have anything on it at all, and unfortunately I wasn't allowed to keep that because my wife wouldn't come out in the back of it. That didn't have the luxury of the bigger bike. So I sold the 1200 and bought this, and unfortunately couldn't afford to keep both of the bikes.
I can't claim to have ridden all 40 models, but I did own a 1000 KZ, and I've ridden most of the 11 and 1200s in one form or another. But for me, this is the beast, the 1500. It's the smoothest, it's the easiest to handle, and for someone who does some serious mileage in touring terms throughout Europe, this has got to be the one. Since 1980, the Goldwing Club has grown from 37 members to 3,400. Around 50% of them have trailers, and there are 71 sidecar outfits. The thing that brings all these wingers together is the 11th British Treffen. And over the weekend, Louise and I are going to see what these people get up to at such an event.
Days later. 3 days later, got it up. That's enough, right? Good. Yeah, mallet, right.
Throughout the weekend, the club organises runs to various places of local interest, and this morning we're all going to be riding off to the spa city of Bath.
Currently, there are more 1500s in the club than any other model. 191 GL 1000s, 480 1100s, 607 1200s, and a staggering 734 GL 1500s. These are just some of the 1,022 bikes that inscribed for the weekend.
That's right.
Treffen this year has had an outstanding support from Honda UK and everybody else and all our traders. And to open this ceremony, or to open our Treffen this year, I would like to introduce Howard Bayliss from Honda UK. Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Goldwingers. As a member of the motorcycle team at Honda UK, it gives me great pleasure and privilege, first of all, attending my first Treffen, but also to be asked on behalf of the Goldwing Owners Club of Great Britain to formally open your 1993 Treffen at Shepton Mallet. And it is with great pleasure and privilege I declare this Treffen open. Thank you.
Have fun, folks. Treffen's on.
chap who's done the paintwork is his name is Bob Falconer. He lives in Canousley in Scotland. He takes his time with it. He's a Bachelor of Arts, and we're gobsmacked with the finish. He interpreted what we wanted in our mind to a degree that's par excellence. It's all hand painted, and it's, a lot of people think it's transfers, but they're not. They're actual paintings. It took 10 days in time to do it all, because he likes to take his time to do it. He doesn't want to be rushed. But we're pleased, yeah.
You having a good time? I can't hear. It's lovely, isn't it? The weather nice, isn't it, eh? Have you had a go at them dice over there? Right.
I prefer the British treffen before all other treffens in Europe which I've seen.
Why is that?
It's more friendly to the people. You never stay alone somewhere. You come here, you have friends in 5 minutes. And it's no problem. I've been last year, I've owned the bike only 2.5 years. I've had BMW before.
Oh yeah. Why did you change?
Oh, to have a good bike.
Not bad, 108,000 miles, same engine.
Yeah, is this the time you joined the club though, right?
What am I joining the club for? I'm getting for nothing. I've got to go for a 150 mile jaunt round the hills.
Those who wanted to go further afield joined Saturday's 150-mile round trip through the Quantock Hills.
got one or two questions that I need to ask you. What sort of backup do Honda UK give to those persons who have bought an imported bike?
The service support that Honda UK gives its customers refers to the products that are officially sold by our authorised dealer network. I think what a lot of people don't recognise is that each country or market offers or can offer a different level of service support. And certainly as far as the continental United States are concerned, their marketing, their pricing is to cover the service support given in that country and that country only. Honda Motor Europe, within Europe, is one market. So if we have products which are sold in Italy or France or any other the common market countries, then we can service support those within the UK. But we're not in a position and we don't have a responsibility to service support those products from the United States.
Why is it that Honda UK only release a small number of goldwings by comparison to the annual demand? Some members and traders tend to feel it's to keep prices high.
No, artificially restricting the numbers these days is not for pricing. Regrettably, due to exchange rates, as I think any importing company will confirm these days, that can hurt prices. But to return to the central question, over the years we've brought in either 60, 90 or about 120 units, and we in the UK have managed to sell those onto our ultimate customer through our authorised dealer network. As far as I'm aware, there are no plans to discontinue the Goldwing. I'm not aware also of any major plans to improve the Goldwing. For 1994, we're going to make some minor changes to it. We're changing its colour to a blue. One area we are responding to is to the addition of the extra wiring looms to make the American style running lights much easier to fit, which has been a criticism. But we have responded to detailed internal changes, evolution rather than revolution, to satisfy some customer needs. The second part of your question was relating to an alternative model, and although there's been much discussion and some pressure from Goldwing owners, I'm not aware at all of any smaller capacity model to be launched.
What with bike thefts becoming more and more regular, and as a result insurance skyrocketing, does Honda have any plans to introduce alarms or better security to their bikes as a standard fitting?
For the last about 14 months, there's been a theft action group, or more correctly, anti-theft action group, established by the manufacturers, which has introduced a data tag. This is a tagging device where you can put transponders in the seats, you can put markings on glass. And the results of that is that of 6 motorcycles stolen, 4 have been recovered and only 2 have been lost. Honda are looking at increasing the areas for some of its products to carry additional security devices, leaving it to the individual to take care of his own property. And this is very much a Japanese philosophy, where it's the individual's responsibility, and it's the other individual's responsibility not to go out and nick it.